Let's jump to the story from AP. Let's move to the Hunter Biden trial. We have this from AP. Hunter Biden's daughter, Naomi, testifies about her father and his federal gun trial ending first week. I believe the prosecution has rested as well, right?
Yeah, they rested this afternoon, and she was the second witness they called. So the prosecution called one of the clerks from the gun shop where Hunter Biden bought his gun to testify, saying, like, no, the form was clear. The other one is saying, no, there's a reason why it's not. Naomi's testimony, I actually find really sad. So she's testifying about this time period in 2018 where she went to visit her dad. She brought her now husband, then boyfriend, with her. They were like maybe moving some of his stuff, using his truck. And she basically is saying, like, I didn't see any drug paraphernalia. I was really proud of him for like dealing with his addiction and stuff like that. And there's something about it to me that is just like, man, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't think the Biden family is, I think obviously there's a lot of skeletons in their closet and stuff like that. But there's a moment where like your daughter is having to come to your defense and be like, no, he was trying really hard. And then you know that he's like actually sleeping with like your aunt who just lost her husband. He's wrecking that family. He's going to go on addiction again. Like, he's just such a chaotic person. It makes me sad for a lot of kids in America who grow up with parents who are just completely consumed by addiction.
Free Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden should not be criminally charged over this. And he should be criminally charged and investigated over Burisma and things of that nature. But it was one of our super chatters last night who made the point that the national instant background check system requires self-incrimination. It's a violation of the Fifth Amendment. And the only reason Hunter Biden is being charged is because he refused to self-incriminate. I agree.
Well, and I really wanted to hear more from sort of the 2A gun rights community on this case. Because, again, it does seem like something they would be like, except for the fact that his last name is Biden, we don't think you're being treated fairly. You know, this is such a messy trial. It's interesting hearing Abby Lowell, his defense attorney, one of his arguments is like, well, he did not think of himself as an addict, and the form is phrased in present tense because Hunter Biden had just completed this 11 days.
Yeah, no, but they had evidence that he did crack like that day or something.
Oh, yeah, and the texts say he was like searching for drugs, but the argument is like he was sober, bought the gun, then did some more crack, relapsed, which is also sort of like, that's your best defense. Like, during opening statements, they have, sorry guys, I spent a lot of time reading about this week. They have, you know, the prosecutors played clips from his autobiography, which he narrated describing his life in drug addiction. And Lowell, his defense attorney, was like, well, because the book came out in 2021, his mindset at that state is not the same as his mindset in 2018. So he really didn't think of himself as an addict. And so when they asked him on this forum, are you addicted? Like, it's a very weird defense.
Honest. On principle, I kind of do agree that he shouldn't be charged, but if that is what the laws on the book show, then it's what has to go forward, because then the double standard wouldn't be held if the shoe was on the other foot.
Well, I mean, peacetime Tim says you shouldn't charge him, but wartime Tim says I am for this, and I think he should get life in prison.
I think it was a similar strategy with how the Democrats were with the Stormy Daniel case against Trump. It was really a PR battle more than I think what it had to do with the actual charges. This case is the same way. It's a PR and political issue for the Bidens and how they're doing this and how some of these details are being brought up. There were complicated dynamics on display. Haley Biden, who was married to Beau Biden, the president's elder son, was summoned by the prosecution to relive a portion of her life where she called it a terrible experience. She bonded with Hunter Biden over the tragedy of her husband's death in 2015.
And she says that he got him hooked on crack.
She eventually got him hooked on crack.
So he got her hooked on crack.
Yeah. So again, these are the details that they're drudging up that really is the issue for Biden. One other big picture thing here is this is in Wilmington, Delaware, where the Bidens are extremely popular. Joe Biden's been elected to Senate there like a dozen times or something. So the Bidens are extremely popular there. Jill Biden's coming to the courthouse there. It's tough to see how a fair trial would be given there, given the community's biases towards the Bidens, because the Bidens are a big name in Delaware.
And Biden has said multiple times, but he just reaffirmed this during an interview when he was in Normandy, saying, you know, it's really simple. He just responded with the word yes, but he was asked, you know, would you pardon Hunter, or is there no possibility that you would pardon Hunter if he were convicted? And he said yes, like I won't pardon him. And then he's asked, you know, will you respect the outcome of the jury? Obviously this is kind of a dig at Trump from the ABC News reporter, but Biden says yes. And so there's a cynical part of me that's like, he's saying yes because he knows Hunter's not going to get convicted, but there's also a part of me that is like, well, you've made this big deal out of how you're not allowed to say things are unfair and this, that, and the other, so you have to say yes, you're going to respect the system. Apparently, Biden's in contact with Hunter every day. They talk on the phone, this, that, and the other. He put out one statement saying, "I won't comment on a federal prosecutor, but I'm proud of the man my son is," and this, that,
In Wilmington,
I'm not surprised
Delaware,
Biden's proud of that.
In 2020, Biden got nearly 27,000 votes, and Trump only got around 3,500. So just trying to understand where this is a jury of Biden's peers.
How is Delaware and Rhode Island, how are Delaware and Rhode Island states at this point? You know what I mean?
just barely hang out. I had read this article or read this data from, after the census every 10 years, they put out a thing being like, here's the ways that we have errors. And I think Rhode Island was supposed to lose a congressional seat. So they only had like one, but there was an error in the population. So they got to keep two or something like that. It was really weird. The trial of Hunter Biden, again, I don't feel like I know enough about gun law to be able to comment. Like, it does seem like the kind of thing that people who are very pro-gun rights would be saying, this is unfair. And I think some of the questions that people are raising, while weird and sort of nitpicky, kind of make sense. On the other hand, Hunter Biden openly admitted to being an addict. This has been a big part of his narrative journey. He's talked about it in his autobiography. And I don't know that the Biden family has ever really address this issue in a way that is sympathetic enough to the American people. I was honestly almost surprised that this prosecutor, if we believe that Biden's pulling all the strings in the government, which I think it's mostly his staff, but like, how did this even get this far where they were allowed to do this? Except for the fact that at one point, he had this plea deal for tax evasion, Hunter Biden did, and also the gun charges. And they were trying to mold them together. And we had a Trump-appointed judge throw that out. It's just this weird clash of like, what are we allowed to do? He's the first child of a sitting president to ever be criminally charged like this.
Hear me out. I know everyone's concerned about the 2A ramifications for this case, but for now, what we should do is lock up Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Jill Biden, Hillary Clinton, Comey, Clapper, Yates. I don't want to read every name off the list, but we're only getting started. And so with this, I accept putting all of those people in prison for a very long time.
At least until we figure out what the heck is going on.
That's right. We got to put a stop to this.
Who would I put into prison?
Yeah.
That's a good. Only somebody who's. We'd have to go through individual crimes. I believe in due process still, even for
Just
my
say some
political
names.
enemies.
Come on, there's someone that's top.
I think the Democratic Socialists of America needs to be abolished. So the entire political party.
I believe in wartime reciprocity, and so if we keep playing this game of guys, Hunter Biden should go. No, don't care. I'm completely over it because they're putting Bannon in prison. Bannon didn't do anything wrong. They put Peter Navarro in prison. They're putting Trump in prison. Look, we're in a lawfare stage in this country, and if Republicans just keep sitting back and saying, well, I'll put it this way. Imagine playing a game of Monopoly where you are watching the other person just take cash out of the bank and stick it into their pile. And you're like, you can't do that. And they go, yeah, I can. And you're like, oh, I guess I lose again. Like at a certain point, you got to be like, I'm not playing with you anymore.
Yeah. Have you ever played a game with a little kid who just keeps changing the rules so that they can win? Like that's sort of the impression I have for so much of this right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm kind of like, give them what they ask for. Free speech and due process for those who request it. For anybody who thinks there should be none, then we apply none. And this means that there's only a microscopic 0.00002% of people who I would be okay with putting in jail without due process, and it's the people who have advocated for jailing people without due process. You come to me and say, we should be able to arrest and jail these people. I'm like, okay, we'll start with you. There you go. Look, the gun-controlled people, of all people defending Hunter Biden, I ain't playing that game. You can't come to me and say you shouldn't be allowed to buy a gun and then defend Hunter Biden when he's doing crack and buys a gun. Okay.
But he had been sober for 11 days.
Yeah, sure. 11
I think
days.
There's a relatable way, I believe, for President Joe Biden to talk about this. I don't think it's unique to Hunter Biden to be in the thralls of addiction. And it really goes to show no matter how powerful and well-connected and privileged you are not beyond the realms of becoming a drug addict and ruining your life. Mm-hmm. So maybe if Joe Biden talked about it like that, I don't know if that would be
But no other addict who had bought a gun under these circumstances would have been given the plea deal that Hunter Biden was offered. Like this is the conversation about the two-tier justice system that I think it really comes down to this moment. Like I think a lot of Americans, again, I'm happy to have a conversation about whether the law that's in play is real to your point, if it's the one on the books and he violated it, then there is a level of like he should be held accountable the way any other American would
it's
be.
hard to prove if you're a drug addict, and I think he kind of got screwed over in how they had the contents of his laptop leak, and then it became obvious that if
he
they
talks
lined up
about
the
himself
dates
as a drug addict.
as a
though.
drug.
Like,
Okay, yeah,
it's such
no,
a
it was in
weird
the book
case
as
because
well.
it's
You're right,
in his
yeah.
book that he narrated, right?
Yeah.
And he's also like getting his girlfriend / brother's widow addicted to crack cocaine. He had multiple girlfriends come forward and talk about it. Like they showed the pictures of him like shirtless and holding a crack pipe. Like it's not
but
great.
How many crimes were committed like throughout those pictures like that were not prosecuted, right? Like Tim said, I think that there's so many things he should be prosecuted for, like Burisma, like financial crimes, and I think that that they're getting him for this actually shows the two-tiered system, that if this was anybody else, they actually would have been hit with fraud charges and all this other stuff, but this is what they're giving him to make it look like, oh, nobody's above the law. I don't believe that.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.